Today we're going to be talking about interviewing to get the job. This is your opportunity to convince the employer you are the best candidate for the position. Also, it's the employer's opportunity to determine whether you will be a good fit for their organization as well. This also gives you the opportunity to find out whether you're going to like this organization as well. The objectives for the presentation are going to develop an understanding of what it takes to be successful in interviewing. We're going to talk about getting prepared and the things that go along with that. We'll talk about the day of the interview. We'll talk about 3 stages of the interview: the introduction, the questioning, and then how to end the interview. And then we're going to talk about following up after the interview. First thing you're going to want to do is get prepared for the interview. And that's going to involve mainly researching the organization. And you have many tools available to you in order to get that done. Students here at the university have access to Career Insider, which is an online research, and you can access that at hiresooner.com. Alumni can access Career Insider as a part of a premium service package with Career Services. You can also review the company's websites, news articles, the stock market. You can talk to friends. You can talk to family. Some of the questions that you want to ask yourself: what are you looking for in a company? What are your objectives and expectations for your career? You want to get to know the potential job, so you want to really dig into the job description and get to know it front to back. Getting prepared is also going to help you to get to know the potential employer. So where do they stand in their industry? For instance, what kind of awards has the company achieved? What is their public profile with the world at large? What is the future of the company? Also, what's the future of the industry? Who are their competitors? What are their competitors doing? Do they have any initiatives such as United Way or Habitat for Humanity? And you definitely want to get to know how the company makes their money. You absolutely, positively need to know that for sure. You don't want to go into an interview not knowing exactly how they make their money. The next step in getting prepared is to test your interviewing skills. And again, you have several resources available to you. You can use Interview Stream, which again for students is available at hiresooner.com. You can set up a mock interview through Career Services. We also have Career Spot videos that you can preview at hiresooner.com as well. Students have access to Interview Stream as a part of their being a student here at the university. Alumni can access Interview Stream as a part of the Premier package through Career Services. Mock interviews are open to everyone, so you can contact the office and we can get you set up with a mock interview. Practice helps to promote confidence. You're never actually going to ever be able to get a hold of your nerves in an interview, but practice helps you to understand how to control them and understand, what it feels like and how you can work your way through it. And not only do the tools that we listed here, but you can also use your family and friends and practice answering questions with them. The next phase of getting prepared would be to specifically a phone interview. Employers do telephone interviews. It's a quick way to pre-screen candidates if there are scheduling conflicts that they couldn't meet face-to-face. Plus, it reduces costs for them for travel. A lot of companies these days are, looking for ways to be smarter about how they go about their hiring process, and this is one way to help them reduce this cost and be smarter about it. First things you want to do is you want to make sure that you take care of any distractions that could interfere with the interview. So you want to select a quiet environment for the interview. You ask your roommates not to disturb you, so they've got to go bye-bye. If you have a pet, for instance, it needs to go bye-bye with the roommate. Make sure no friends or family are going to call or visits. Touch them up front and let them know you're going to have a phone interview and that you'll talk to them after that. You want to disable your call waiting if you're going to use a hard line so that you don't have that beep of somebody trying to call you. If you do use a hard line, turn off your cell phone and your pager so you don't receive any of those other calls as well. And obviously you're going to turn off any televisions or radios that might be distracting as well. You can have several items with you during a phone interview. You can have your resume in front of you, a pen and paper to take notes, all of your company research, an outline of items you wish to cover, questions you anticipate the interviewer may ask based off the job description, questions for the interviewer that you're definitely going to want to ask if they're not covered during the interview, and you want to have your personal calendar available in case they want to go ahead and move forward with a face-to-face interview. Remember to speak clearly, sound excited, and take notes. When closing the interview, ask good questions, ask what are the next steps, and make note of these so that you'll be able to follow up as you go down the road. You want to let the employer in the call. You want to thank the interviewer for their time. And if you're still interested in the position, make sure the interviewer knows it. Express your interest in the position. Don't let them go away not knowing whether you're interested or not. The next type of interview you're going to get prepared for, and this is becoming more and more prevalent because they can actually see the interviewer, would be a webcam interview over the internet, for instance, through Skype. It's going to be very similar to a phone interview, so you're going to be able to have the same items available to you, your resume, any research you've done. You can have that all prepared in front of you. If you want to split the screen on your laptop, you can actually have one side with the Skype on it and then the other side with the company's website. So you can have all of those items available to you. The main difference is you're going to need to be professionally dressed. As with a phone interview, you can do that in your pajamas, but with a Skype interview or a webcam interview over the internet, you will need to be professionally dressed. So the next thing we want to talk about is the day of the interview, face-to-face interview. Your image is often as important as content. Interviewers were surveyed, and on average, interviews last up to 1 hour. But it only takes the interviewer 6 minutes to decide if you are hireable. 6 minutes, folks. That's not very long. So your professional dress is very important. You want to be conservative and neat, so dark colored suits. And neutrality is important, so no plaid suits for guys, or it needs to be really muted. A white or pale colored shirt or blouse, no patterns, black or dark shoes. Hair and makeup should be neat and not attract attention. You probably want to stay away from perfume and cologne for the day, at least during the interview. Men, you want to be clean shaven. If you're going to have a beard or a mustache, it needs to be trimmed, it needs to be neat. Hands and nails need to be manicured. So you want to cut your nails, make sure they're clean. Ladies, you want to have just a neutral manicure, such as a French manicure, nothing loud or showy. You will need to bring some things with you to the interview. First, you want to bring 2 to 3 copies of your resume. You may have been speaking to one individual about the interview, and when you show up, there's 2 other people sitting there, 3 other people. So you want to make sure that you have an extra copy of your resume or several copies of your resume just in case they don't have a copy. That way you'll be able to give them one. You want to bring along an unofficial copy of your transcript, also a list of your references. Remember, with these last 2 items, you don't necessarily want to offer those up, but if you're asked if you have them, then you've got them and you can give them a copy of them. Next, you're going to want to bring along a typed list of questions. They don't need to be typed, but you need to have a list of questions that you want to ask, because at some point you're going to be given the opportunity to ask questions. You want to bring along a binder with a notebook or a pad and a pen to take notes on. And then you can bring along your resumes, your transcript, and your references within this binder. At Career Services, once you've activated your Hire Sooner account, you can come in and get a free portfolio. Now, the first stage of the interview is going to be the introduction, okay? You want to arrive 10 to 15 minutes early. If you arrive on time, you are late. You're going to need to check in when you get there. They're going to need to notify the interviewer that you're there, and then they're going to need to come out and get you. And so if your interview is at, say, 2 p.m. and you arrive at 2 p.m., you've set that process back by 10 to 15 minutes. If you arrive 10 to 15 minutes early, then your interview is going to start on time. You want to check in with the administrator or the assistant and find out how to pronounce the interviewer's name. You also want to remember that a lot of times these assistants and administrators, they're going to be a very valued employee, and they will be asked about you. So make sure you don't give them a reason to submarine you by being rude to them, etc. You want to be ready to shake hands. Basically, that means you want to have your coat, a purse, For you ladies, your portfolio all in your left hand in order to shake hands with the interviewer with your right hand. You want to wait when you get to the interview room to sit. You don't want to run the risk of sitting in the interviewer's favorite chair. If you're not offered a chair right away, you may politely ask where to sit, and then the interviewer will direct you to a chair to sit in. And finally, you want to maintain a positive body language, okay? You want to smile. Your handshake needs to be firm, and you want to come across confident. You want to mirror the interviewer's body language so that if they're leaned back, you know that you can relax a little bit, not as much as them, but a little bit. If they're sitting up straight, leaned in towards the table, then you want to make sure you're sitting up straight as well. Don't lean into the table because that can be viewed as confrontational, but you definitely want to mirror as closely as possible the interviewer's body language. You want to refrain from negative body language, such as slouching, tapping your feet, swinging back and forth in your chair, looking out the window, checking your watch, etc. So you want to limit those things during the interview. The next part of the interview is the questioning. So the interviewer is going to throw out a bunch of questions for the next 45 minutes or so, and you want to definitely prepare for this in advance. You want to prepare a list of questions you think the employer is going to ask, and you're going to utilize the job description for this. The employer gives you exactly what they're looking for as far as the qualifications. They're going to tell you about the job as far as the duties and the responsibilities, and you should be able, by studying this, think about and know what types of questions they are going to ask you. You want to be prepared for behavioral interviewing type questions. Behavioral interviewing is going to look at your past behavior to kind of predict your future performance. It's sort of like the three-legged chair. Can do, will do, have done. So I can do this, I will do this, here's when I've done it. You want to come up with 5 or more success stories. And those stories need to identify strengths that you have and want the organization to know about. Some of the things that employers are looking at, listed here in the next slide, your ability to work in a team. That is definitely going to be something that almost every employer is going to question you about. It may not matter that your job is going to be in a cubicle, but you need to be able to interact with the other members that are not only within your department, but also within the company as well. They're going to be looking at your leadership potential, your written communication skills, your problem-solving skills, what kind of work ethic that you have. They're going to be interested in your initiative. They will get to your technical skills, whether you're detail-oriented. They're going to be looking at your flexibility, your computer skills, your interpersonal skills, organizational ability, whether you're outgoing, your entrepreneurial skills, and your tactfulness. Analyzing the position for which you're applying will give you a really good idea about the desirable characteristics that you think the interviewer may be looking for. You're going to research the company. So if it's an accounting position, then you know accounting knowledge and teamwork as far as their culture is going to be very important. If it's a technical manager training position, your technical knowledge and, again, your teamwork, management, leadership skills are going to be very important. You want to identify examples from your past where you demonstrated these skills. For content, a project success or failure, for as far as function, communication skills, management or teamwork, self-management, whether you're a team player, etc. And again, you want to identify 2 to 3 of your assets that you want to include in these stories that you want the employer to know about. So behavioral interviewing questions are going to always kind of start about the same way. Give me an example of when. Tell me about a time when. For example, tell me about a time when you weren't very pleased with your performance. What did you do about it? So then the next thing you're going to do in answering the question is you're going to, first of all, kind of describe this specific problem and kind of the factors that contributed to the problem. So, for example, my problem, I had a midterm exam that I needed to do well on in order to do well in the class. Next, you're going to talk about the actions that you took to remedy or solve, kind of deal with the situation. So, I studied really hard for the exam to make sure I was prepared. And then finally, you're going to talk about the results. I see a lot of potential employees, they leave out this part in answering a behavioral question, and this is really the most important part, the result. So, for example, when I got to the test, I was stumped by many of the questions, and I made a C on the midterm versus the A that I expected. Now, the thing you want to remember is this particular example is not a positive story. You want to try to use as many positive result stories as possible. If you are asked a question where they're looking for a negative result, or your example ends with a negative result, you want to make sure that you add on what you learned so that you don't repeat the same mistake again. For example, instead of I made a C versus the A, so I went and talked to my professor to see how I could better prepare for the next test. Okay? So remember, if your story is not a success, be sure to include what you learned from the outcome. It's very important. Because if you show a negative success story and you don't add on what you learned, then you're bound to, in the employer's eyes, bound to repeat the same mistake again. You want to remember to keep your answers brief and concise. Be sure to include quantifiable, concrete data. Don't feel it's necessary to talk over silence. Your answer ends when it ends. Most interviewers are going to take notes during the interview. And if you start talking again while they're finishing their notes, they're going to stop finishing their notes. They're going to listen to what you say, and what you say then might not be as good as what you had said before. You want to remember to repeat your key strengths 3 times. Okay? What do you want the interviewer to remember about you after the interview? For example, you have specific technical knowledge. You exhibit excellent interpersonal skills. You possess leadership potential. So you want to make sure that you repeat each one of these strengths 3 times in whatever version that you repeat them. You want to approach the interview as being on their team. During the interview, the employer wants to envision you working for them. Okay? For example, committing to get the job done no matter how long it takes, for example, is one way of putting yourself on their team. And that way the interviewer can envision you working for them. You want to maintain a conversational flow. This is a give and take, and you don't want to talk over the interviewer. So it's really going to be important that you understand the different types of interviewers that you might run across during your job search. The first type is going to be like a targeted interviewer. This individual is going to be very impersonal. They're going to be impatient. They'll be abrupt, all business. They're going to seem cold, and they're going to get to the point. Okay? They're going to be interested in hard data, and they're going to have a clear purpose for the interview. The next type of interviewer is going to be kind of the all-in-the-family type of interviewer. They're going to be concerned with the corporate family. They're going to use the word we instead of I. They're going to talk in terms of our people, and they will be really big on emphasizing team skills and how important those are to the group. The next type is the thinking person. They will be deliberate. They will be interested in behaviors. They're going to be interested in how you will accomplish things. And last one, and probably the hardest one, is going to be the make it easy for me interviewer. They can seem unfocused, and you're going to need to be a good listener and take opportunity to sell your strengths when they arise. So when you see an opportunity to sell yourself, you're going to need to be able to jump in there and lay out for that interviewer, how you're going to be an asset to the company. Finally, ending the interview, you're going to ask the questions you prepared for the employer. I want to emphasize again, do not show up at an interview without questions to ask the employer. Even if it's only one question, what's the next step? You definitely want to have questions ready for the employer. Finally, if you are still interested in the position, express your interest. Don't leave the interviewer guessing your level of interest in the position. Let them end the interview. You want to shake hands and thank them for their time. And if you have not done so already, try to collect a business card from them. The reason you want the business card is so that you can follow up. You're going to send a thank you note as soon as possible once the interview is over with. It needs to be handwritten. You want to remember that interviewing for a new position is probably not their main job function. A personal note keeps your name in front of the interviewer, plus can make a great impression. We've had stories from recruiters that tell us that they've had 2 ideal candidates that were equal as far as talent and experience and potential. And they gave the job to the one individual that sent a thank you note after the interview. It does make a great impression with the interviewer. And again, this is another opportunity for you to show your interest in the job. If you're not interested in the job anymore, don't bother sending a thank you note. You want to stay away from emails if possible. They're not as personal as sending a handwritten, addressed thank you note. And if you're involved in a panel interview, you want to send a thank you note to each interviewer. So that means you're going to need to try to collect their names or their business cards during the interview. Finally, after you send the thank you note, you want to call and check in after a week or 2 and reiterate your interest in the position and the company if you're still interested, and get an idea of where they are in the process for filling the position, such as have they finished their interviews? Are they going to do second level interviews? When do they think they're going to make their decision? Finally, you want to keep an interview journal. This is a great way to jot down the positives that you saw during an interview, the questions that you were asked and how you answered them, names of interviewers, dates, and this will give you an idea of your opportunities to improve. Keeping this journal will kind of, if you're applied to several different positions, will kind of keep all of this on track for you and keep it organized. And you'll be able to recall names when you're preparing for a next level interview. If you've done a phone interview and you're going face to face, you'll have all of that information. You'll know what types of questions they've asked you before, so it helps in all this preparation as well. We want to thank you for attending today's webinar.